Chess grandmasters play many chess openings, however their special one is the Sicilian Defense. In today's video I will show you all the variations and everything you need to know in order to win every game under 1500 rating. So the Sicilian Defense starts with e4 and c5. Why is c5 such a good move? Well, if you think about this, what are the most two important pawns in chess? The e and the d pawn, right? They control the main squares of the chessboard. So, your opponent cannot just play d4 and control the center. If you think about moves like pawn to e5, well, that's also a good move. However, there's only one caveat to this, which is that first of all, you are mirroring your opponent, which is not good when you're playing black and want to win. And one more thing is that, well, if you exchange the main pawn for a main pawn, so you don't really gain anything. It's 0-0-0. However, with c5, if they go d4, even right now you will be able to punish them because you will attack their queen. But let's ignore that fact. Let's just focus only on the pawn structure. Well, now you have traded a c pawn, the less important one, for the more important d pawn. And that's why the Sicilian is so loved by the grandmasters. Alright guys, so I will show you the main line now. Knight to f3. And, well, before I show you knight to f3, you have to keep in mind that the Sicilian is the most variation-rich opening in chess. So, they can play pawn to c3, and then you will have to respond with d5, but I'm not going to explain it to you now. They can play knight to c3 and try to play g3 and bishop to g2, which is called the closed Sicilian. However, yes, I'm talking about the grandmaster favorites. That's why I'm showing you knight to f3, which is kind of a move that makes sense, that when you think about this and ask yourself, hey, what would a grandmaster play? That's exactly what they would play most probably, right? Developing their king knight and opening up fighting for the center. And yes, we traded the pawns here. Guys, there's one caveat to this, alright? This pawn on d6 might be targeted, that's for sure. Second of all, long castles now make sense for white because, whoa, in one move they can secure their king and put pressure not on a weak pawn yet, but it might become very weak later on. Knight to f6. Why do we play knight to f6? Well, we play this to force knight to c3. If we play, I'm going to reveal the main move, the main next move. But if we play a6 here, they might be able to play c4, and now your idea of playing rook to c8, queen to c7 and targeting, and also playing pawn to b5 is just gone because, well, white has pushed the pawn. White has more control over the center. It just doesn't make sense to do that, right? So we play knight to f6, knight to c3, and here we play a6. When I first saw this move, let's say after 1.5 years of experience in chess, I was like, what is happening? Why would you not develop your pieces? But when you think about this move prepares one important idea. Also, well, the b5 square is just so important that it's worth to block it, because with one move you are restricting 3 of your opponent's pieces, plus b5 is getting ready as well. b5, b4, and then attacking on the c file. So they can play many different moves like bishop to g5 or bishop to c4, which my coach always used to say you have to play e6 after them. So let's say bishop to g5, e6. So why wouldn't you play pawn to e5? Well, because if they go back, you play bishop to e7, suddenly the d5 square is getting very, very weak, the d6 pawn is very, very weak, and it's just not recommended. It's better after bishop to c4 as well, it's better to just play pawn to e6 and defend the d5 square. And after bishop to e3, you can actually fight, because after this move you have bishop to e6, and you also still have the knight defending the d5 square. And by the way, bishop to e3 is the main move. That's what grandmasters would play. That's what you probably saw if you watch tournaments. Alright, queen to d2. Why not moving the bishop? Because where would you move it? Bishop to e2 doesn't really change the bishop's position, right? Moves like bishop to e2, you only play to maybe castle or connect the rooks. Bishop on f1 is actually a good piece when you think about this. If you removed all the pieces from the chessboard and kept only the bishops, the bishop is not bad. It's just one move away from the center. Everything is good with the bishop. Here again, bishop to e7. It doesn't really develop the bishop, right? Doesn't do much. But their goal is castling. And guys, the Sicilian is not for the weak. It's not for the weak, that's what I'm gonna tell you. You cannot play Sicilian and expect a calm game. It's fire, all the time, fire. And that's why black has so many chances of winning. Because, well, in chaos, it's more 50-50, right? Of course, in chess, you cannot expect your opponent to make mistake or play for 50-50, but in practice, that's what happens. Everybody makes mistakes, even grandmasters, and that's why the Sicilian is so good. And yes, guys, I mean, moves like h4, g4 is what you will encounter. But let's focus on long castling first. You push to b5, and I'm not going to tell you all the moves now, all the variations, because I don't even know them myself. You can play 20 different, maybe not 20 different moves, but you can play many different things. What I want to tell you about is the main plans. White will want to focus on the king side, whereas black will want to fight on the queen side. If they push g5, you go knight to h5 and block the pawns. And here the main idea is that this is just a random move. I don't think it's the best. But rook to c8, let's say h4, queen to c7. You might be able to want to play rook to d8 one day because, well, you want to defend the d6 pawn, and maybe have d5 ready in the long future. Let's say they play king to b1, b4, knight to a4. I don't know, a5. You push. White pushes on the king side. Black pushes on the queen side, and that's basically it, guys. You push, you try to defend, and sometimes you can counterattack in the center. So for example, king to a1, you can try to play f5 just to grab space, open up the rook. If he takes here, well, knight to f6. Yes, g7 is open, however now he has no pawns to attack you with, so you can play rook to f7 and even bishop to f8 if you need it. And one day also, if, I don't know, there is something happening, you can try to play pawn to d5, which is also a good move that you should probably play if you want to win, because, well, this weakness, the d6 weakness, is just an inherent weakness in the Sicilian. You will have it. It's just like that's the price you pay for playing the Sicilian and having the chance at taking the chance at winning the game. Okay, guys, so that was the Najdorf variation, the grandmaster favorite, but there are other ones, so let's focus on them now. Okay, guys, so now I will quickly go over the most annoying Alapin variation. So when you will play Sicilian, some guys will be annoying, will play c3, you play d5, just fight for the center. The queen is in the middle, but now he cannot kick it out because the pawn is on c3, you see. So after d4, you simply play knight to c6, knight to f3. You don't worry about c4 because you're gonna move away with a check, but after he goes bishop to e2, wait, knight to f6, bishop to e2, it's better to take, and maybe, for example, play e6 or develop the bishop. Knight to c3, and you can move back to a5, and your idea for the game is that he's got an isolated pawn. You, for example, play bishop to e7. I needed to check with the engine because this might look bad after, but for now d5 just isn't an option because you're controlling it too many times. And let's say rook to e1 castle as well. Your idea is to play rook to d8, b6, bishop b7, kind of like the queen's gambit. There's nothing that white can really threaten you with for now, and your idea, exactly, just fight for the d4 pawn. If he's controlling it too much, take control over the d5 square, and just improve your position. It's a very good position for black. Right, let's go into another one. So the variation that I play as well, and people like Garry Kasparov play, is the dragon. So what is that? Well, first of all, you can play d6 and then play g6 with the dragon, but the move that I recommend is g6 right now. And what are the main moves? Well, d4 and taking with the knight. But let's go through the weird ones for now. I mean, it's a good move still. It's not a weird one. It's a move that makes sense. It gives white, it keeps white's advantage. Everything is okay. And yes, after queen to a4, the position is equal. You play bishop g7, castles, and everything is cool. But the main move you will encounter is pawn to e5. Then you kick the queen out. If he goes here, knight to d5, and you are you are doing very, very well. You just move to. Oh, the computer says c7. I would move away to b6 if I had a second to think. Alright, yeah, the computer says knight to c7, and then you castle. The pawn is weak. You might probably try to play d5. You open up the position. It's equal. You as black are trying to equalize the whites, advantage when they start. So if the position says 0-0 or plus 0.01, you have succeeded as black. You have removed the advantage. Okay, so let's talk through the main line. So guys, it's very important that in a position like this, you play knight to c6 rather than bishop to g7, because what almost happened to me during my game is e5, knight to g8, and bishop to f4. I mean, white has good advantage, and you can't really you can't really do anything about the pawn. And the usual maneuver knight to h6, knight to f5 doesn't work because there is a knight on d4. So it's very important to first play knight to c6. And here, if they take, which they usually do, they will take the queen, take this, play here, and let me just show you a few moves. It ends in a position like this. You control the white squares in front of the pawns, so there is no threat. You control all the usually, well, g5 is not protected, but f6 and d6 are, and that's very important. You can always protect g5 with the bishop. This is a solid position, and black has equalized almost. I mean, the computer says plus 0.06, but the position is symmetrical. That's number one observation that I can tell you. And second observation, yeah, everything is cool. You have very good f5 square. I just don't see how white can easily win this. So the dragon defense, the dragon variation, is the best way of forcing white to go short. And let me tell you why. Because after bishop to e3, bishop to g7, they have the bishop to c4 or f3, which is what surprisingly many people play, but it doesn't give a good result for white. So let me tell you about the position. Queen to d2 is a problem because there is knight to g4, and you know what? You don't want to play a position like this. You just don't. You just don't. After queen takes d8, king takes d8, he even moves. But where is black's advantage? White's advantage? There is no advantage for white, right? Whenever you can play knight to g4 and harass the bishop on e3, or play knight to b4 and harass the bishop on d3, it's a good way to. It's usually good to play it. Okay, but they could play f3 and protect themselves from f3, right? Knight to g4. Well, yeah, but then you castle, queen to d2, and this is this is what I played used to play with white, and I ended in a worse position from the start. I mean, knight takes d5, and black has everything developed very well. King is on the middle of the chessboard. It doesn't look right. The game ends in the next 10 moves. I'm telling you guys, it doesn't look good. So yeah, that's why they will usually just try to play bishop to c4, and here after castling they cannot really go castles because you go knight takes e4, bishop f7, rook takes f7, and knight takes e4. Why bishop f7? Well, because if they take pawn to d5 and you win the piece back, you've opened your bishop, and this is equal position. It's not symmetrical. These pawns are the difference here in the pawn structure. However, oh my gosh, let me play a random move. Here, bishop to d3, de, bishop takes e4. And yes, you have everything open. You end up in a little bit worse pawn structure. However, look at this. Look at this. It's just equal. All the pieces are good. Okay. So they will go bishop to b3, and here you have this option to play d5. But listen, I could just check the variations in the computer and tell you about everything, but I'm not an expert at this, and I'm not going to tell you. Then you will ask me like, oh, how are you playing this variation? Well, I'm not playing this one. I just played d6. I know that it's not the best, but for now I don't really have the knowledge of this d5 move, so, well, in my last game about 2 months ago, I have played d6. And here you just try to play bishop to d7, castles. You play kind of like in the Marazzi structure. So that's what I did. I played bishop to c6. They went queen to d2. I don't remember at this point, but you basically trade this off. You then might come back on to f6 or go to c5 or even go to e5 and c4. I mean, the knight in the Sicilian dragon is a very good piece. Rook a to d1, and you just do the usual stuff in the Sicilian. You try to push on the queen side a little bit to grab some space, and you try to keep this pawn structure as tight as possible. Do not move it at all. It's just good as it is. You might try to play queen to a5, queen to c5, maybe for some queen exchanges. And this is a solid position. So guys, this will be everything. Remember, the Najdorf, most popular amongst grandmasters. Not as much fury as the dragon, not as many traps. And it's just more solid in my opinion. It's safer. In dragon, you are on a cliff. One mistake, you're dying, because you could allow e5, or you can allow very quick h4 h5 push. You can allow many different things that can destroy you within 2 moves, really. So if you want to learn the dragon, really read check all the variations, remember the moves, know what is happening every time, because it's very complicated. But if you want to play something solid, you don't have to remember as many things as in dragon. Then play the Najdorf. And remember, the Sicilian, yes, it's grandmaster's favorite, but maybe not for you. Maybe you prefer Kraken, and grandmasters like it because they can control it. It's chaos that they actually find that they actually like. But you might just want to play something passive, maybe French defense or e5. Thank you for watching, and bye.